the body, one of the things that the body has the amazing ability to do, because we do hopefully feed it the foodstuffs that we need, it can convert materials into the molecules that can go to make ATP. And when it does that, it's called a conversion. And the term interconversion means it's done inside the cell. All right? So when we have the body use extra glucose, which it does. I mean, when we eat our foodstuffs, and if we eat something that has the sugar, or in some cases, something that's going to be like a direct use of glucose, or intake of glucose, I should say, that means it's readily available, it's quick. But then anything that kind of maybe gets stored in the skeletal muscle or liver during short-term storage, it's stored in the form of glycogen, which is just a little bit of a twist on the molecule, so to speak, but it's readily available. That body can pull that glycogen, make the glucose, and boom, it's ready for use. For example, runners, okay, people who might do the marathon running, all right, one of the things that they do is that carb loading before the run, about 3 days ahead of time, they just start eating a ton of carbs. And when they do, it gets stored short term as glycogen, so that when they begin their run, it immediately gets converted to glucose and used as energy. Now, granted, it only gives about a minute's worth of energy. I know, you're thinking, wow, how, you eat that many glucoses, store that many glucoses, I should say, and I only get like a minute. Well, it's a minute of burst energy. It's a really rapid burst. So it gives that ability to get that run, so to speak, into the point, because you know how like when if you do running or anything and you start out running and the first thing that happens is until you get to what is sort of your stride, and then you're just and you're going, and so at that point you're pretty much back to having a little bit of it made with oxygen. If it's using the fats, okay, when it's lipogenesis, well, if the glycogen stores are full, meaning skeletal muscle, liver, the body will take glucose, a few amino acids, and make a lipid. And that lipid gets stored in adipose cells. It can then be an energy source, like if you're trying to lose weight, okay? This is when the body would pull the glucose, the molecule from that adipose tissue and make the glucose. And this is what would deplete those fat cells and you lose weight. The bad part about that, just tell y'all real quick, fat cells don't go nowhere. Yeah, they don't die. They just sit there waiting. Yeah, gotta love them. Only way to get rid of them, liposuction. Just saying. Now, when we begin to take some of that glycogen that may be stored and break it down, we're breaking it down, and that process itself is called glycogenolysis. Glyco meaning the glucose, genesis, beginning, and we're lysing that glycogen, breaking it apart. Now, the next one. This is the one that we say we don't want the body to do. using those amino acids, okay, to make the glucose. This is where you're doing gluconeogenesis. You're making glucose from something that it should not be. Neo meaning new, a beginning, okay? So that's not the process we want the body to do, but the body can. As we look at the body and the use of these foodstuffs, we say the body has metabolic states. For example, when you eat, okay, the amount of time right after eating, this is going to be called an absorptive state, because certain processes in your body, in the digestive system, are hopefully taking place so that those foodstuffs do not pass through the stomach and the intestines and the colon so quickly that we're not getting to absorb anything. Because think about this. How much time do you tend to have between meals? A lot. Like how much?
Girl, I go like, I ain't eat today, probably eat part 2.
When was your last meal?
Yesterday.
Wow, so
Can't do that. I be honest with you, but it's like when I try to eat.
so going on 15 hours.
Yeah, I like to eat.
I do.
But I don't know why it's like, sometimes I can't eat. I be wanting to, but I just can't. It's like, some of it's medical too, because like when I eat, I feel so out of breath, so I'll be having to go to my lung doctor. She don't know what's wrong with me. So I'm not going to eat. Because if I pass out while I'm eating, I can be mad.
So now, under normal circumstances, if we think about the day, okay, we tend to think of breakfast, lunch, dinner,
I wish I was doing that.
and then back to breakfast. Usually the long time frame between dinner and breakfast, okay? So we kind of look at that time, like breakfast to lunch to dinner, usually about what, 6 hours in between each meal?
Except Victor.
So, you know, when we look at it that way, the reason for that, believe it or not, okay, for the most part, is due to some hormones. We have them regulating certain activities within our digestive system so that hopefully as we eat, the stomach breaks down foodstuffs to a point. As we move into the small intestines, as we go through, go to the colon, at all of these little areas, those foodstuffs broken down, and get absorbed into the bloodstream. Devon, did you have a question?
Can I just think about the hormones and stuff? They're talking about working
Yes.
and people and all that stuff.
All that fun stuff. So the absorptive state we refer to as that time after eating while we are absorbing. We're absorbing those nutrients. They're going to move through the intestinal wall into the blood, into the lymph, and that usually takes place for about 4 hours after eating. After that point, we begin to receive signals about being hungry. Might hear the little stomach rumbling, might have that little pain, you know. Well, we also see that we have something called the post-absorptive state. So let's say that we have maybe more time frame in between a meal, all right? Or we take that 6 to 7 hours between a meal. After that first roughly 4 hours, The body's got to do something to meet demands, okay? And this would be post-absorptive. Usually, what's going to happen late in the morning before you have lunch, late in the afternoon before you have dinner, and then overnight. Because if you think about, I mean, like, yeah, there are some people who can do that midnight snacking or something like that, and go right back to sleep and stuff like that. Once I go to sleep, I'm done. So, you know, but for the most part, you have quite a bit of time in between that dinner meal and the next meal the next day. So, those processes that we just saw, these, okay, they can take place to make glucose.
All 4 of those were post-absorptive?
Those are processes. I wouldn't say they're post-absorptive. What I would say, those are processes the body uses to get glucose. The very first one that gets used is glycogenesis and this glycogenolysis, using glycogen, that little bit of storage in skeletal muscle and liver. Now, the reason why does the body have to make sure that it maintains glucose levels pretty much all the time? Are we needing a bunch of energy at nighttime when we're sleeping? We've got certain cells in the body that do, but like skeletal muscle and stuff, not so much. There is a reason that our body works pretty hard to maintain a glucose level. There's a reason why. The only molecule the nervous system can use as energy is glucose. When you don't have enough glucose available, if the body has begun to go to these other ways to get the glucose, if that begins to get low in availability, you're going to begin to see things happen with, for example, your brain. For like, do you ever get to feeling like you've got low sugar when you can't go through and have the meals? How does it kind of make you feel?
Slow.
Like you're ready to pass out, shaky, Jaquan, move slow, dizzy. Yeah, and now this is the reason why. Because the glucose, one of the systems that the body really needs it for, the nervous system. And so it'll work to try to maintain those glucose levels. But when things kind of are not readily available, if it has to go through some of these, we begin to feel some of those effects, okay? And, you know, like for me, I kind of feel like my head's kind of foggy, like I'm slow motion or something. I'll get to shaking too, that sort of thing. And you'll hear people go, oh, well, my blood sugar's low. I need to eat something. I used to think, when I was younger and everything, and I would hear somebody my age saying that, I would be like, what are you talking about? Now I know, okay? Because I get some of those feelings. So we work, I should say our bodies work relatively hard to maintain that glucose level. John? On your handout, yes, there's some.
Two.
Cross them out. The ones that we're not going over, just cross them out. I forgot about those. Yeah, there's a couple more slides to kind of cross out.